So hi again. The title for the session is Build an Interactive Scenario Using Articulate Storyline 360. My name is Samuel Apata. I am an eLearning developer and instructional designer. So that means that I build interactive experiences that enhances learners' retention. I do a lot of corporate training. Most of the e-learning that I do are tailored towards corporate environments, but it's also applicable in a lot of other situations. So whether it's safety training or um, the many uses of e-learning in healthcare and so on. So if in case you're new to this, Articulate Storyline is an authoring tool that's been used, that can be used to build interactive learning experiences. So it goes beyond just PowerPoint as you know it. It's a more interactive and engaging platform. And we're going to take a look at some demos in today's lesson. Why you should care about learning about this is, just in case you're looking to learn about what instructional designers do, or you want to find out more about how interactive experiences are built in Storyline. This will be a class for you, but in any case, this is something for everyone to take away from a class like this. So in this class, we will look at how scenarios are built, what's the thought behind using scenarios and their benefits. So it goes beyond the traditional Q&A, the traditional multiple choice questions, or select all the correct answers and so on. There's so many types of questions that we can look at, but interactive scenarios goes beyond that. And we'll talk about some of the differences and why scenarios may be useful in some cases, not all cases. It has its own use, right? So let's move ahead and see what's in stock on the next slide. Now, as I mentioned, scenarios really are a great way to add interactivity to your slides. So, think about it. It helps learners to think about the content instead of just reading it. So oftentimes, learners want to be engaged. They want to, we as instructional designers, our goal is to put learners into those situations where they're not just reading text off of the screen, they're also kind of involved, they're able to make decisions and so on. And scenarios are just a great way for helping learners get to that point. The key to building a great scenario lies in how you approach your content. So you should always aim to relate your content back to real life situations for your learners. So, I mean, a good example would be learners who are taking safety trainings, for example. So maybe there's been reports of an accident or so on on the safety site. So a construction site, for example. Scenarios could quickly help the learners put themselves in that situation where they can make life-changing choices. So, it could either be decisions that make or break them, so to speak. So presenting a scenario goes way beyond questions is the point here. And this image that you're looking at is think of it as a storyboard. Think of it as a schematic drawing or a sketch of different paths that you can take. So you have this different decision points, and then you have the consequences of your choice. So if you make a choice, what's the consequence of that choice? Is it a safety issue? Is it, do you lose a point or do you gain a point? If you do gain a point, how do you progress through the rest of the scenario? So are you able to make another choice, or is that choice is the consequence so dire that it takes you out of the game or makes you lose more points? But eventually you're trying to get to the final decision point where, and then you get to an end as well. So really these are paths that you can take. And so this is all of the magic that goes on behind building an interactive scenario. So, you know, the this is what makes the magic happen, right? So you're making different decisions and you're showing your learner the consequences of those decisions. And I see more people joining, so I'm glad everyone is able to join. If you're here and you can hear me, please give me a thumbs up so I can continue. Or if you want to come off mute, that's fine too. Okay, perfect. I see some thumbs up. That's excellent. Yeah, just wondering if if there's anyone out there on the call who has designed courses using Storyline. What's your experience? Have you used interactive scenarios in the past? I'm just looking to gauge your experience. You can type it in the chat or come off mute. All right, while we wait, in case you're just joining, we're talking about building interactive scenarios inside of Articulate Storyline, which is a tool that's been used to create e-learning. So it goes beyond the traditional Q&A, the traditional multiple choice or multiple response question. It's a more engaging type of question. So think of scenarios as question types, but you're asking questions in a way that it doesn't look like a question, but it feels more to the learner like they're a part of it, right? So, and this is just one way to use scenarios, right? You can involve the learner by using graphics that represent the learner. So in this case, I'm creating a sales training. So I'm introducing these characters, right? So you have Robert on the left, and you have Dr. Megan you have Robert on the left and Dr. Megan on the right. So this is just one quick way to draw your learner in, because when learners see themselves inside of your training, they're more likely to engage than if they're just reading text off of the screen. So introduce your characters, say something about them. So is he a sales representative? That quickly helps us understand who Robert is in this scenario. Who's Dr. Megan? Is she a potential Farmer Inc. customer? That's very vividly stated. So we can quickly connect with that idea once we get to the scenario, right? This slide actually needs no other introduction, right? Like you can tell what's about to happen, or how these two people kind of relate to each other. So that's one way to introduce, grab your learner's attention right from the start. So introduce your characters early on so they can know who they're dealing with. And one other thing you can do is to add some background image. So the background image really is to show the setting in which each of your characters belong. So, just saying she's Dr. Megan may not quickly connect, but if you put Dr. Megan in a hospital setting, like that grounds that character right away. Robert, if you put him in well, I'm not sure what that background is, but maybe his home. I see a lamp. I see a vase. next to a window. It looks like he's in an apartment. So maybe he's a customer who's calling from the office or calling from home, but just putting the characters in those scenarios is going to really help you drive the message home without much effort. So you're probably going to ask yourself, where will the learner be when they need to apply the information that they're learning? Remember, these images are meant to represent the learner, right? So if you're creating a training for all employees, for example, you're thinking about showing Robert as a representative of the employee, right? Of the farmer agent. And if you're doing a training for doctors, for example, then you're looking to reflect that as well. So just something to keep in mind. But for this example, our sales rep would likely be in an office, and the potential customer, who is the farmer agent on the right, will be in a medical setting. So both of our sales rep and our customer will be at their place of work. Okay. So now that we've kind of set up that, we're going to look at how to convert your freeform images into scenarios inside a storyline. Now, this GIF that you're looking at is just the way that you actually convert the image. I'm going to demonstrate this in a minute, but that's just a preview to how you would do that. So you go to Insert and you click on Convert to Freeform. But one tip is, when you're converting your slide to freeform, try to match the button behaviors. So whether you're making your button a certain color to show that the learner is correct or wrong, that would be a way to show that. Any questions so far before I continue? Is any of this making sense? If it's not, I get it, but just want to check in. Any questions? All right, seeing that there are no questions, that either tells me that you're getting all of it, or did someone come off mute? Maybe somebody had a question. Let me look in the chat real quickly. Okay, so I'm not going to pronounce your name, but you do have a question, and your question is, are you doing this on Google Docs? No, this is not Google Docs. This is Articulate Storyline 360. It's an authoring tool. You can Google it, but I'll drop the name right here. Articulate Storyline 360. It's used for building e-learning, so you can download a free trial for like 30 days, I believe, or do a paid subscription, depending on how you plan to use it. But it's a tool that's very similar to PowerPoint, but it's a powerful tool. You can add codes to it, but it's not needed. There's a lot of inbuilt features you can take advantage of at once. And it's just a great tool. I've been using it for about 10 years. So, welcome to talk about it at another time if you're looking to dive deeper into it. But this is just a preview, see what you can learn today, and we'll probably have other classes in the future. I don't know, go ask. I'm in a class. I'm sorry about that. Fine. Yeah, apologies for that. So all right. So back again. Where was I? So we're talking about Articulate Storyline 360. So that's one way to, and you said 10 years is a lot. Yes, it's a lot. It's just, so I'm in the learning field, do a lot of learning and development, whether it's training employees with e-learning or, coaching, facilitation, and so on. But really, it's about making learning more accessible to learners. So presenting information in a way that makes sense. And oftentimes I'm talking to adult learners. So learners who are coming with their own past experiences, they have some background knowledge. What you're doing as an instructional designer is helping them connect what they know to what they need to know, right? So you're helping them connect concepts. You're bringing things they know from the past and connecting it with something new. So it's a bit of psychology, a bit of well, it's mostly psychology, really, because you're delving deep into what they need to know. So in any case, let's move ahead. So for this scenario, we're talking about, it boils down to asking multiple choice questions. So, and we've talked about this already. Like this goes a little beyond multiple choice questions. They're not just clicking on an answer. They're also, you're asking a question. For example, this learner is being asked to make a choice between these two responses, right? So depending on how they respond, they get some feedback, which could be, correct feedback. Like you handled that the right way. You gave the right response to the customer who's asking that question. You get a smile, you get a good feedback, everything is good. You're more likely to remember a scenario like this than a multiple choice question is really the premise. So, the providing feedback, providing quick feedback to your learner to let them know that, they're either doing a good job or not. If they're not doing a good job, they should get an incorrect feedback, right? And they should have the opportunity to try again. So the goal of any learning is not to fail, at least not in academia. In the corporate world, the goal of learning is to help the learners understand the concept. So we're not trying to fail them in any way. There's no use trying to fail them. So whatever help we can provide, but at the same time, we don't want to pass learners. We don't want learners to pass the training unless they acquire the skill. So sometimes you may have learners try again multiple times before, they actually maybe complete the course or get a certificate for taking the course. So controlling that experience is where instructional designers are really needed. That's where we shine. So hope all of this makes sense. And we'll look at a few examples of courses that I've built that use some of these principles. Let's dive into some demos, right? And yeah, just immediately we can look at some of these demos right here. So well, a lot of these puzzles actually use scenarios, and one of them that I can think of is this Masked Singer. If you've seen the show, The Masked Singer, it's really about who has seen Masked Singer? Have you watched the show Masked Singer? I forget what station it runs on. It's a show where somebody is hiding behind a mask and they're singing, and you have to kind of guess which celebrity is behind the mask. So this, let me make sure I'm using, I'm sharing my sound. Just a second. If you have any questions, please feel free to come off mute at any time, or you can type it in the chat. That'll be perfect. Okay, looks like I'm sharing my sound. So can you hear my sound? If you can, please give a thumbs up. I'm going to start this scenario over again. Did we get the sound? Did we get the sound?
I can't get the sound. Nope.
You cannot. Did you say no or yes?
No, I can't hear the sound.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure why, but yeah, this one you kind of have to hear the sound to really. And I'm pretty sure I'm sharing my sound, so not sure what's going on, but I'll just play it anyways, and just try to follow along. So this is really the. I see you raised your hand. Can you say more about why you raised your hand? Do you have a question? Are you just
Sorry, I was
indicating?
trying to put a thumbs up. I was
Oh, you
trying
can
to
hear the
put a
sound.
thumbs up.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I'll continue this. And really the presentation is called A Masked Singer, and I'll let you figure out the rest, but essentially it's presenting a number of choices, and you can, and this was not only created in Storyline, it was created also, the animations were created using a tool called Beyond, but it's a bit more. Yeah, this one requires a bit more effort than what we're learning here, but it's, the principle is the same, right? Yeah. So now you're presented with those choices, right? And you're supposed to pick one person. Which one should we go for? 1, 2, 3, 5, or 6? Anyone wants to help us?
I don't know, 5?
5? Okay. Yeah, so let's go for 5. Well, it looks like I can't select 5 unless I select the others. That's any other number. 1 to 4. Pick between 1 to 4.
3?
3? Okay. So let's go for 3. Can anyone guess who it is? Like, so
This is
this is
5.
exactly what we're talking about creating scenarios. Like, you're in the scenario now, like you're more compelled to respond than if you were just given a bunch of text to respond to. So does anyone have a guess who this might be? Well, let's listen to us sing and we can figure it out.
Okay.
So who wants to solve that?
Okay, I can try. Maybe
Okay.
Taylor Swift, because the
Exactly,
first one
Taylor
seems to be
Swift.
Steve. Yeah.
So let's see if it's Taylor Swift. Yay! Taylor Swift. All right. Yeah, so that's one scenario, right? And you can choose another mass singer, right? Uh, who do you want to go for now? Well, I guess we can go for this guy. So this is presenting another scenario, right? Yeah, this one might be, I don't know, it might be a bit old for some of y'all, but so he interrupted the Taylor Swift acceptance speech at the VMAs in 2009. That seems like such a long time ago, but you know, you may not be familiar with that. So I'll go ahead and all right. Anyone wants to solve that?
I remember hearing about the interruption of the speech, so I'm thinking Kanye West.
Kanye West, exactly. Looks like it's Kanye. Yeah. So in any case, that's what a scenario would look like. And sometimes it may not even be that complicated, right? So it could be something that's a lot simpler. And I'm going to so we're going to actually going to build a scenario in a second using the tool that I'm talking about. So particularly storyline. Let me stop sharing and make sure I'm sharing my other screen. If you use PowerPoint, then this should be a breeze for you. It's a lot like PowerPoint. So because there are other tools which are more complicated than this one that are used for building e-learning, but this one is much simpler. Can you confirm you can see my application now? Can you see the storyline application? It's got like a okay. Excellent. And if you can't see my screen, please let me know at any point in time. So when you first get to Storyline, this is what it looks like, right? So just like many other tools out there, like, Photoshop, Illustrator, PowerPoint, it's got a canvas, right? The canvas is just a white plain background that you can start to customize. So in this case, I like to change the size of my slide. I would like to use one that's a bit wider so it mimics what you see on your computer screens. And then I can start to add some elements onto my scene. So, as discussed, if you recall from the presentation I just shared, you can insert your characters, right? So let's say you're starting to build out a sales training, for example. Storyline already does a good job of having some inbuilt characters that you can start to add. And, let's just, for fun, let's use the same guy that we saw early on. So, we might want to try a different pose. Maybe he's on the phone or something. Here's where you can choose those options. You can say, you can scroll and kind of pick whichever pose you want. So remember, he was talking to that doctor. So let's maybe use him. And you can scale him up just by dragging on the corners, place him maybe to the right. you can also add the doctor by, just searching for, and you don't want to mix an illustrator character with a real photographic character, right? You want to keep things consistent. Otherwise, if you don't do that, it's possible you have some cognitive dissonance with your learners when you do that. So you probably want to keep things consistent, and using let's just speak out a nurse this time. Do the same thing. You scale the character to the right. And if you recall, we talked about adding backgrounds just to kind of differentiate, So here's one way you can do that. You can go to photos and you can search for hospital background. Storyline already has all of those stock images that you can add. So let's just search for a hospital background. Oops, not quite what I was looking for. A clinic, maybe, but I don't want any human beings in there. So yeah, I mean, this looks like a good one, or maybe this one. It's a little dark, but let's just use this. And so, it's something we can maybe just imagine. You have half of the scene split, and you can send this to back just like you would in any other program. Again, for him, you can have him maybe in a home. So go to picture, well, maybe not picture, go to photos, which is that opens the inbuilt one. So you can do home, or maybe office. Office, maybe corporate, if I can spell office. And yeah, he could be someone at his desk, right? Maybe he's at his desk, and we send this to back. I hope this is making sense. Feel free to stop me at any time if you have a question, please. And remember, don't remember, just so you know, only what's on that canvas is going to show. So all of these that's been pulled to the side, they're not going to show. But if you want to keep things neat, you can always crop them by going to Format, Picture, and Crop. You can actually just crop it to the edge of the canvas, but you don't really need to do that. Just knowing, but you have them in different settings. So a good example is if I preview this, you would only see what's on the stage. You see how quickly we were able to create that first and second step in what we discussed on how to make a scenario. For this one, it's the screen shouldn't be that large, right? Like it kind of looks awkward, like he's a tiny man in a oversized castle or something, which isn't what we want. But just imagine it works, right? Just imagine he's in front of his computer in his office. But so now we have our characters set up, right? You may want to maybe add I'm sorry, I'm in a meeting. I'm in a meeting. Yeah. You may want to maybe add a bit of text description to recall how we had maybe his name, maybe Robert Garcia, and then you say his title, maybe head clinician. Maybe make the name larger. Yeah, something like this. And you also give the you give the lady the same treatment as well. So you can always just copy that and, you know, really you can make him a bit larger. So it's just, it looks a bit more life size with the computer. I think that's a bit better. And her, you can do the same. So maybe she's closer to the camera. And when you preview this now, you would see how that just helps the learner understand who they are. Well, they have the same name, but just imagine, it wasn't the same name, maybe the same title. Maybe you name her Amy Smith or something. And maybe so he's a customer and she's a clinician, right? All right, so we've set up our scene, right? That's the first slide. And for the second slide, we may want to duplicate this. For the second slide, so maybe on this slide, we can have a voiceover that's kind of just set, and you can use text to speech, or you can bring your own audio you can import your own audio, or you can have them, there's a lot you can do in this program. So you can say, meet Robert and Amy. Robert is a customer calling Pharma Inc. to make inquiries about medication, right? And then Amy is the clinician who picks up the call. So and you can, check, generate closed caption. We want to be mindful for our learners. There may be some learners who need captions. Selecting the right voice. So this way you don't have to worry about voiceovers. There are some natural sounding voices that you can pick from. So we can just insert that. And that shows up here. This is all of this down here is the assets on the screen, right? So you have the photo, let's make this, it's already doing that. So the audio is on the scene, the photo, you can select each element on the scene. So if you were to preview this, you'll be able to hear the audio as well as view the captions. Well, I hope the captions is...
Meet Robert and Amy. Yeah. Robert is a customer calling Pharma Incorporated to make inquiries about a mediation. Amy is the clinician who picks up the call.
So that's that about that first scene. You're able to establish what's going on in the scene with that first one. Now with the second scene, we're starting to get into, okay, what's being said, what's the interaction like. One way you can do that is to build some responses, right? So maybe you're training Amy and not, you're training a clinician on how to answer calls, for example. So you may want to have maybe Robert say something like, hello, can I get some information about my medication? And you may want to make some of that text a bit larger so folks can see it. You may want to use a dark background for that, but maybe keep it a bit transparent so it's just a little more stylish. So increase the transparency and hit close. You may want to take away the shape outline, or change the color of it. But then you can just copy this, so you're not going through all that step over again. And for her, maybe she has an opportunity to answer. She can either say hello, hi. I think hello would be hi. Hi, how are you today? Right? And maybe a second option could be, I don't know, like, Jordan, what's your name? So let's just assume there's a wrong response here and there's a correct response, right? So how do you make this options? Because if you click on this, it doesn't really, nothing's gonna happen. It's not a button. It's not a, this is a speech by this guy, and here are the two options that she can pick from. So for you, you're trying to let the learner know that there's a wrong option. What you do is, remember that slide with that GIF that I mentioned? You go to convert to freeform is what you want to do. Now, converting to freeform presents some options. So you have drag and drop, you have pick one, pick many, text entry, hotspot, shortcut keys. The one that you want is pick one. For pick one, you're saying, these, when you click on that, these two, all of these buttons, actually all of the elements on the stage become buttons, become selectable, right? So you're also presented with this form view that lets you select what you want to be an option. So we want that to be an option, and we want the last one to be an option. So one of them is correct. You have to kind of check the one that is correct. I mean, for me, it would probably be how are you? Because you don't just want to jump straight into the customer's request. You probably want to get their name, confirm who they are before giving them that sort of sensitive information. So let's just assume, hi, how are you today is the correct response. So the way that you indicate that is by selecting correct, and then you have your correct and incorrect feedback. So let's assume that the learner were to pick either one of those. They would see, based on their choices, they would see that. And it also adds that in the layer section, you have your correct feedback, you have your incorrect feedback. All of this is done for you automatically, right? So all you're really worrying about is how to indicate which one is correct or wrong. So they do get that feedback. And you can also increase the number of attempts. So if you want the learner to be able to try again, you can make that 2 attempts. So then you get the try again button, right? And if you want to really make this like a branching scenario, right, you can start to have different options where, maybe you have a slide that is correct. So maybe they progress to somewhere, or maybe whoever gets this question either ends up in, sorry, let's just exaggerate for a little bit. It either ends up in jail or goes to the bank. So let's just, let's try that. So let's say bank, money. And please come off mute at any point if you have any questions. Let's just say they get money, right? This looks fun. Let's say whoever, and I'm going to drag that all across the slide so we don't have any white spaces. So let's say they get money, if they get it correctly. Otherwise, they get they go to jail, right? So you insert, go to photos, you can do jail. Well, jail, well, let's just use, yeah, yeah, I think that says jail enough. And sorry if this is a sensitive topic for anybody. I don't even know how I got here, but yeah, so yeah, you have, so you can, so then you can branch, right? So if they got it correctly, you can say continue, and then you add a trigger over here. So triggers really are a way to program your slide to go to another slide, but it's not really programming as you think about it, right? You're not writing codes or anything. You're only saying what action should be done when the user or the learner clicks on this button. Should they jump to a slide? If so, which slide, right? So in this case, we're wanting them to jump to the money. So we go to 1.4. You see how that split the slides into two paths, right? So we're wanting them to go to 1.4 when the user clicks on continue, right? But otherwise, if they got it incorrectly, they should go to jail. So you do the same thing, jump to slide, and it's untitled for now, but that's the incorrect slide. And then you hit OK. So, you know, just by doing this, this is just one level of a scenario. This is just a one level scenario, but you can build in multiple levels. So you can have maybe from jail, maybe he gets a redemption and, you know, does an odd job or something, or answers another question that brings him back to, gives him a second chance to come back to the slide. So in that case, you're starting to program things and things are starting to make sense. And the learner at that point understands that there's a consequence. Because any storytelling, any engaging project, you're as much conflict as you can have happen is what makes it engaging, right? So if there are no consequences for an action, then your learner's not going to care, right? They can feel like they can do anything, they can pass it and not, you know, maybe they don't get to go to jail and, you know, they're not really taking the topic seriously. But if they know there are consequences, that sometimes that consequence could be time wasting, right? Maybe they have to try multiple times. After you fail a few times and you're like, okay, I need to study this. I need to pass it on the next try. I can't sit here for the whole day taking this one class that I have to pass. So that's one way to think about it. I'm going to pause here and see if there are any questions, or, you know, is there anything that, are you getting what this is? And is this something you would like to try on your own? And I'm just going to play it in the meantime.
Meet Robert and Amy. Robert is a customer calling Pharma Incorporated to make inquiries about a mediation. Amy is the clinician who picks up the call.
Yeah, and maybe there's an instruction or voiceover saying, you know, pick one of these options, right? You also have to make it look like it's something that can be clicked, right? So I click on this, hit submit, get correct. No, that's not right. It's not supposed to go to jail when you hit correct. I'm not sure what happened there, but jump to the slide correct. Okay, there's a next slide button there that wasn't supposed to be there. Anyway, I've taken care of that one. Like I said, you know, it's best to add some form of instruction at the top. It could either be text or it could be voiceovers, where you can say, you know, select one of the options below, select one of the options below, then that needs a comma, I believe. Then click submit, right? Because the point is you need to give the learner as much information as possible. If you just show them on a slide and they're not clear on what to do, they're going to be lost and not know what to do. So let's assume this is your instruction to the learner, right? And maybe for the buttons, well, that's not going to show up. You probably want to pull it in a little bit more and maybe make it go in 2 lines. That's okay. As long as they can see it, I would actually put it in the middle. Well, it should be on her side since the options are here. And you may want to add some animation to the buttons so it looks like it's clickable, right? And you can have the animation appear at different times. So by the time you view this now, because if it moves, the learner is going to notice it,
Robert and
right? And they're going to
Robert is a customer
feel like
calling
it's
from-
clickable. So, right? Now you feel like you can click it. There's so many other things we can do. We could add a hover effect so the button, I mean, you do have this effect that tells you when you actually click on a button. And then you can click on submit, which is a wrong response, and this should take them to jail now. Okay, it doesn't take them to jail. That means I didn't program my button very well, and I apologize. Yeah, this shouldn't be next slide. This should be on the title slide. Okay, perfect. So everything should work now. And really, that's really it for building a scenario like that. I hope you've been following. I see I have the infinity screen. I hope this hasn't been happening throughout. Has anybody been following? Have you seen my screen the whole time? Just making sure. Oh, this has me intrigued. Okay. Thanks for confirming that. Yeah, I don't like seeing that infinity screen. I'm not sure why it happens, but this has been great though. I see a number of folks on the line. Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay. That means we've done a good enough job. And we're going to hold more classes like this. So, if it's something that you're interested in, feel free to reach out. We're going to, keep doing this. And yeah, hope to see you in the next class. All right, have a good rest of your day. I'm going to stop the recording and we can call it a day.